Thank you, Beth. Wow, this is awesome. This room is awesome. And this is a great privilege and honor for me. I had the fear of God put into me by Joanne Duvas, Julie Wong, and indirectly Paula, who asked me 7 times if I was all set. And I think all set was code for, did you actually prepare remarks, or are you just going to wing it for 5 or 6 minutes? So I did prepare remarks. And I had to make them big because I can't see anymore. So first of all, I was going to talk a lot about WX, but honestly, the video and everything else, it says it all. It's such an amazing organization, and I'm just really proud to be here. Small part of it. I am lobbying to be the first male board member, and if you want to, you can. Anyways, WX is amazing. I was going to read the entire mission statement, but I won't. I'll save you the mission statement, but I like the one line, which is empowering women in the real estate industry. This room is a powerful room, I'll tell you that. It's amazing, right? I've been in the industry for almost 30 years, and a lot has changed, but a lot still needs to change. But I really feel like equity and inclusion are really important to this industry. We've come a long way. We got a long way to go, and WX is leading the way, so we should all be proud to be part of it. My last comment about that, for all the men in the room, the onus is on us to help make this happen, at a minimum to get out of the way. All right, so we're going to get into Paula. I'm not going to go through her whole bio. There's so many people in this room that have been a big part of Paula's life. I think a lot of us think of her as our big sister, as our sometimes mean big sister. But you know, what I would like to do is have people do a little shout outs to her for different parts of her life. So she's currently a senior vice president at Clarion Partners. Is Clarion in the room? She did something in the middle it's not worth talking about, and then before that, she was 15 years at Morgan Stanley, where I had the great privilege of working with her. Do we have any Morgan Stanley alums in the room? I got a couple. A little less weak than Clarion. Okay, you guys got to work on that. She had a number of roles there in New York and London. She also had roles at Reichman. I know there's some Yarmouth Group people in the room. All right, we got at least Hodis is here. All right, so. Okay, she has an MBA from Wharton. Yeah. Wharton. All right, now I'm counting on everyone on this one. And she's a Georgetown Hoya. All right, Hoya Saka. All right. That was the loudest cheer. I like that. I'm done. She's also the flag officer of the American Yacht Club in Rye. Okay, we got that representation. And she's currently the treasurer. She also loves the Rolling Stones and has traveled around the world to see them. That's a different story. You've heard a lot about what she's done for WX, which is amazing, so I won't repeat all of that. Having been president, been very involved as a mentor in the Scholar program, and I think that's an amazing thing. But I think that's just Paula. I think that's what she does. So what I've tried to do, and it's partly to keep me on task, is I actually called some people and emailed them and asked for stories about Paula. Right? And so I got some stories, and I'm going to try... I actually edited them so they don't embarrass her too much. So I'm going to start going through some of them. So one of them is from a former Morgan Stanley colleague. He said, there's the time she spent a week in a hot and very smoky conference room in the late 90s with 10 Gitanes smoking Frenchmen while we were negotiating our first contract. And she was pregnant with Nikki, her son. We'll get to her kids in a minute. It was a miserable experience for everyone, especially Paula. Negotiating with Frenchies is hard enough. And I quote, they are grand crapeaux, as you know. Any French in the room? Not my comment. It's bad enough without the risk of secondhand smoke, cancer, but we prevailed because Paula was leading our charge. So way to go, Paula. He was worried, though, that Nicky would be born with a Gitane cigarette in his hand. Another story from an industry friend. When Paula wanted to give up her operational role at Clarion, when they were making her work too hard, Steve, She said it was supposed to be part-time. I remember when she told me, I'm going to Clarion, I'm not going to work full-time. I'm like, BS, it's not going to work that way. Every imaginable job would land in her lap. Like, so the team would say, we want to market in Japan. And she's like, you can't market in Japan with a license and all of a sudden. They would say, gee, can you help us figure it out? So they offered her multifamily management in Greater New York. And her comment to her friend was, they don't need to know that I've never done multifamily before. Paula is so capable, she can figure anything out. From a former colleague of hers who's now at Green Oak. Paula is an OG. For all the old people in the room, that means original gangster. It's a compliment. As an associate, I remember being invited by Paula to join the WX dinner when it was 100 people. I think there's 100 people right here, right? And she's dedicated her time and energy to bring innumerable people up in the industry. I think we can all relate to that. From a former Morgan Stanley and Clarion colleague. So you can start figuring out the concentric circles here, right? When I think of Paula, the following comes to mind. Smart, gracious, funny, tough, brutally honest. I've been on the receiving end of that one a lot. Fundamentally decent. Our relationship has varied over time, working for her, working with her, her working for me, but she's always been exactly the same. She's played the big sister role. Able to give honest advice. One never needs to worry about Paula giving Rosie advice. She doesn't do yes woman very well. It's one of the things we love about you so much, even though it hurts sometimes. I think about her as a true fiduciary. She's not worried about herself, thinking about the client, those of whom we invest, always a fiduciary in every fiber of her body. I will tell you, I didn't say that, I could say that. Paula and I worked very closely together in 2008 until the beginning of 2009. And that was a really crappy time. And I got to tell you, Paula was awesome, right? She never lost her cool, and she was 100% focused on the clients all the time. And you know, it was awesome. So thank you so much, Paula. We're going to turn to her family in a second, but one last story. And it's funny because I was going to tell a story about Paula. And someone else said, here's my story about Paula, and it was the same story. So during her Yarmouth days, I think Paula was known to be a little bit rowdy, right? She'd be the one leading the charge when everyone went out. By the time she got to Morgan Stanley, she got there in 95, right? We started working together a lot in the 2000s. She had become a senior woman in the industry. So this is the person who's told the story. He said, I have clear memories. I will tell you my memories were not very clear. Of Paula reconciling both roles at an analyst summer party in 2007. There was a margarita machine and a keg. Folks were having fun, maybe a bit too much fun. Paula was over there, drink in hand, watching over. When the keg stand started, she demurred, but she also gently made sure that the young women and the young men who were there that had a little too much to drink did not do any keg stands. So this was Paula at her best, being a leader and mentor and looking out for others. I will have to say that I led the keg charge stand on the keg stand and did not end up being one of my finest moments at Morgan Stanley. So I tried to call the Commodore at the yacht club to get a story about Paula. I didn't get one, but I just got a story tonight about a former Commodore at the yacht club, Steve Ferneri. So as I understand it, when Steve will go to Paula's office now to talk to Paula about something, he'll go down the hall and he'll close the door. It's not to talk about multifamily in Greater New York, because Paula actually doesn't know anything about that. It's to talk about what's going on at the yacht club, right? That doesn't surprise me at all, Steve. Right. All right, let's turn to her family. The Schaefers are represented there at the table, right there. So Paula was born in West Islip, Long Island. She grew up on the South Shore. She loves the Beastie Boys. I just made that part up. She is one of 6 kids. She's the second oldest. Her sister Nadine is the oldest. Sorry to call you out on that. Then Larry, Justine, John, and James. So there's 3 boys, 3 girls. And all the siblings are here. I said Larry, didn't I? I said Larry. except for John. John's in North Carolina. Not sure what he's doing there, but he's not here. Another really awesome anecdote. It's fitting for us to honor her here in this room right here, where her parents, Lawrence and Doris Schaefer, were married and had their wedding reception here on April 28th, 1956. That's so awesome. Awesome. So when I reached out to Nadine and Justine to get some story about Paula, they said, look, Paula, to her siblings, Paula is the one dedicated to upholding family traditions. Hosting Thanksgiving is epic. She does it. Fondly referred to as the Schaefer family rager. Something that Nadine and Justine requested I do not elaborate on. So I won't, for their sake, not for Paula's. Her family knows Paula for her willingness to try and learn anything, whether it was teaching herself to ice skate on the canal in their backyard, learning how to ride a horse, attempting the high notes and Sound of Music score. I've done karaoke with Paula in multiple countries around the world. I would not want to hear that. Or learning how to sail. So there goes the sailing thing. Paula approaches any task with a methodical determination. So I could say finally, look, the number one job any of us ever have, if we're so lucky to have, is as a parent. Paula has two children, a son, Nick, and a daughter, Anne. She thinks, is close to finishing up college. Anne is just starting. She told them they were not invited today because she wanted them to focus on school. I tried to sneak them here, and I offered to fly them in. Nikki's on the West Coast, right? And they both were like into it, and then they both checked with their mom. So neither one of them is here. But I do have, this is the part I don't want to screw up, because I said, will you give me something for your mom, right? So I'm going to read this part. So I apologize, I didn't memorize it. So from Anne, I'm so influenced by my mom's hard work and determination every day. She's one of the hardest working people I know. She has been my biggest inspiration for my entire life, and she's always pushing me to pursue my own dreams in art and teaching me that I can do anything I put my mind to. I'm so incredibly proud and excited of my mom. Right? Three words. I said three words. She said loving, hardworking, passionate. Okay, then there's Nikki. I know Nikki. All right. So, Nick, every weekday of the summer, my mom and I would take the train into the city to go to work. Every day we took the train together, I realized more and more the level of motivation my mom operates at is inhuman. While I was rolling out of bed, struggling to get my clothes on, out of exhaustion at 6 a.m., she was buzzing around the house, making Anne breakfast, walking the dog, all the while thinking about all the rest of the responsibilities she has for the day. I think her dedication is driven by her undying love for my sister and I, and her genuine compassion for other people. When I was applying for jobs over the summer, she was not only sending me different options to apply to, but also sending me suggestions to pass along to my friends. I love my mom, and she motivates me every day to be the best person I can be. That's from a boy. Three words: outgoing, sociable, overachieving, but not in a bad way. And then he said, again, she's an incredible woman. We both miss her very much at college. That's when I got jealous. I can't get any texts back from either one of my kids. So Paula, with that, look, I'm not sure what more I can really add to that personally. I figured I would just let the people who love you in this room kind of tell the story of who you are, other than to say you've been a dear friend, an amazing colleague, and most importantly, a wonderful inspiration to many women and men in the real estate industry, and that's why you have this great showing here. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Paula Schaefer.
Wow. Sonny, that was amazing. You know, I don't know what I was thinking asking you to to do this, right? Like, how do I follow that, right? But I guess I always say, like, if you're going to hire somebody to do a job, hire somebody better than you, right? Because they're going to make you look good. So thank you. I'm going to get back to some thank yous later, but first, I want to start with a prediction tonight. Whether you're a regular sponsor or if you've never been to our gala dinner before, you will be back next year. After experiencing the energy in this room, these amazing group of real estate leaders, tomorrow you're going to be saying to all of the women in your organization, get involved in WX in some way. An occasion like this has been a great opportunity to reflect back on my career and think about lessons that might be helpful both to people in the room starting their own careers and to those of you who are leaders in your organization, thinking about ways that you can strengthen support for women at your firms. I've been working for a very long time. I've seen a lot. Tonight, I want to share just 5 short lessons with you. Lesson number 1, choose your sponsor well. When I was interviewing for an asset management position at Morgan Stanley, I met Mike Foster. During our initial meeting, he was questioning me. I realized I was interviewing him too. And in the first hour or so that I met him, I learned that Mike had 3 daughters and a very strong wife. And I said, that's a man who is not going to mind giving a woman opportunities in the workplace. And I can't see Mike. There he is. And that's when I realized, I really started to realize the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Sponsors are internal, and they're there advocating for you at the table when opportunities and eventually promotions are being discussed. Little did I know at the time, though, that Mike was somebody light years beyond his time. Remember, this was 20 years ago. I was pregnant with Nick, my first child, past my due date, having trouble putting my feet into even sneakers. So going to work was a challenge. But no problem, Mike Foster brought me lunch. We sat at the dining room table in my New York City apartment, going over some last-minute stuff. And then I don't remember him disturbing me at all when I was on maternity leave. And then when Nikki was 6 months old, Mike offered me a chance to move to London to run Morgan Stanley's European Real Estate Asset Management Group. I didn't have a lot of managerial experience. I had a new baby, but Mike thought I had the ability to do the job, and I was given that opportunity. There's more. Fast forward 2 years when Annie was born in London, Mike moved to Europe for 3 months. It was a hardship, but Mike moved to Europe for 3 months to do my job so I could take a long maternity leave. His support as a sponsor was critical to my success, both advocating for me to be promoted in the first place and then putting support in place to help me be successful in my role. I was lucky to have a Mike Foster, and I know I taught Mike a few lessons along the way, and one thing important, and he'll remember this, never drink alcohol from a bottle that doesn't have a label. Mike, do you remember that? A late night dinner in Madrid. It was some kind of grappa, but I don't really know because it didn't have a label. Let's just say I ran the meetings the next day. But seriously, it's important to actively find the right sponsor for you and cultivate that relationship. Always be strategic and judicious about what you ask them to do for you, as well as realistic about what you can do. Be prepared for the opportunities that you're asking for. For those of you already in leadership positions, make sure you establish a culture that encourages and rewards sponsorship and development of younger professionals. And your managers need to be rewarded for that. Having that support in place is critical to developing your teams. So lesson 2, make your own destiny. and be prepared for it by building yourself the best foundation and experience that you can, but then actively make it happen. In the late 80s, I was working in acquisitions at the Yarmouth Group. David Hodis will remember this. The US real estate markets were terrible. I was one of the newest to join the group, and I really felt I needed a plan to protect myself. Retail was my favorite asset class then. I love multifamily now, but it was retail then. When the head of the retail group came to New York to walk some malls, I invited myself along on that trip for what became my interview for the asset management position that I eventually transitioned to. I was fortunate to have chosen a firm that had a culture of giving people opportunities to grow and develop, but more importantly, I was being realistic about the situation. Hope is not a strategy. You really need to actively be strategic and active about your own career development. Lesson 3, relationships matter. Work with people you know and trust, and work hard to develop personal relationships. My kids never really thought I did any work when I was at Morgan Stanley in Europe. All they ever heard about were the fun times I had working with colleagues in Paris or Milan or wherever I was that week. And it was fun. We all work hard, and it's important to do that with people that you really enjoy. When I left Morgan Stanley in 2010, I knew that in an ideal world, I wanted to work with people that I knew at a firm with a great reputation in the industry. I feel so fortunate that my Morgan Stanley colleague, Hugh McDonnell, encouraged me to come work with him at Clarion Partners, friends, where I'm challenged in the multifamily group every day. Lesson 4, be a champion for change. A 2019 McKinsey study in women in the workplace concluded that the issue with getting women into senior positions is that there are not enough women who are promoted to manager in the first place. McKinsey uses the phrase broken rung to describe women getting stuck at that first step. They estimate that if women were promoted and hired to first-level managerial positions at the same rate as men, we would add 1 million more women to management in corporate America over the next 5 years. That's amazing. Looking around this room, the notion that there are not enough qualified female candidates is really difficult for me to believe. So forget that. Be a champion for change in your organization and in our industry. I was fortunate enough to have been given the first opportunity to lead a group many years ago. We should all be focused on setting goals for women to get into that first level management position, because that's what will make all the difference in getting women into senior leadership positions. A culture of diversity will just naturally result in more diversity. And it's essential, as Sunny had said, to have both men and women directly involved and engaged in this day-to-day conversation to change the culture. Lesson 5, last one, find your community. WX has played such an important part in my life for so many years, being involved with scholarship and mentorship, serving on the board, and as president, I've gotten back so much more than I put in. I've learned so much professionally and personally from being involved in the organization. I think we have some of the best programming in New York real estate, and I always learn so much from our monthly breakfasts at the Harvard Club. I'll go into the office one day after one of these sessions full of new ideas, things I've learned in panel discussions or from speaking with fellow members about projects they've been working on. It really helps me stay connected to the industry and be better at what I do. It's been gratifying to be involved in our scholarship and mentoring programs. Watching the video earlier reinforced for me the value of what we're doing, but the best testament for me is that 8 of our WX scholars are now full members of our organization. That means they've attained senior positions in real estate in New York, and importantly, they've found in us their community and are now actively involved with WX and giving back. Okay, that's it. 5 lessons. So now Now I want to share some thank yous. When WX President Beth Safante first approached me, no, I'm not done yet. First approached me about being WX Woman of the Year, she said something very wise. She said, use this as an opportunity to celebrate the past 20 years and reflect on the experiences you've had and the people you've met. And that's what these past few weeks have been about for me, a wonderful chance to reflect. So thank you, Beth. Thank you to the WX board for giving me the opportunity to stand up here tonight. And also thank you to all of the past WX Women of the Year who have reached out with their help and support. Marjorie, Susan, Cheryl, Sarah, Carmen, thank you all. It is really reinforces for me the value of the community we have here in WX, and I'm honored to join this awesome group of women. So many people to thank, and especially all of you, our generous sponsors, so thank you for being here tonight. I also want to thank Pat Hauserman, who again this year worked tirelessly with her amazing committee and her co-chair Lauren Cahill to make this evening such a tremendous success, as well as to the Berman Group for their constant support of our efforts tonight and throughout the year. Thank you. And I need to thank Sonny for his very kind introduction, but most importantly for all the support he has given me in my career and all the guidance and leadership through some pretty difficult times. In addition to being a great real estate investor, he consistently conducts himself with grace and humor. I'm so jealous of the humor. I so admire how he's treated investors and led his team. Sonny's always followed WX with great interest, and he's not kidding when he says he wants to be the first male board member. He asks me about that all the time. Sonny, I'm not sure that's really gonna happen, but what I do know is that the more we can involve leaders like you in our conversation, the more successful we will be in our efforts. I'm certain you will work hard to support a culture of diversity and equality at Bentall Green Oak. So thank you. I also want to especially thank my colleagues at Clarion Partners for their tremendous support of me and WX. This is the 8th year in a row that Clarion has been a sponsor at this dinner. And it means so much to me that this year our chairman, Steve Fineri, where is Steve, is here. I've learned so much from his leadership of the firm, and so importantly, how he has given back to our industry. And as Sonny mentioned, in a wonderful intersection of professional and personal lives, I'm also so grateful to Steve for his support of me in my other life at American Yacht Club. I suspect his support was instrumental in me being asked to join the board at American 5 years ago, as well as my later appointment as the first female officer of a 130-year-old yacht club. Thank you, Steve. I would be remiss if I did not give a big shout out to my friend Joanne Duvas, who introduced me to WX in the first place when I moved back to the States and sponsored me for membership. That was 15 years ago, Joanne. And I need to thank you for all the help you've given me with this dinner and all the support you've provided. Thank you so much. And finally, I want to thank my family for being here. Hello, family. It's great that they can celebrate with me this evening. I wish my children could have been here, but you know, Sonny's right, they had to stay in school. And plus, I think it would have just perpetuated this myth that mom just goes to big parties at work, and that's all she does, right? So, but I hope they're working hard in college, and I do hope Nikki graduates this year. But I have my siblings here, and I have my goddaughter Samantha here. Thank you, Sammy. She's representing my 10 nieces and nephews, so that's great. It's really important to me that everybody's here. And as Sonny said, My parents did have their wedding reception here in 1956, and that's pretty amazing to think that they were here with our grandparents, with our aunts and uncles, celebrating. It really makes that. I have to say, Mom and Dad, we miss you every day, and I would not be standing up here without the support that you've given us and given me over the years, so thank you. So now I am wrapping up. Recently, I was speaking with Carolyn Harcourt, I hope she's here, one of the founding members of WX. And according to her, when putting together this organization, the hope was that eventually there would be no need for WX. I think we all realize now that 30 years on, despite the progress that's been made, it's even more relevant now than it was at its founding. So I'm going back to my original prediction that after this evening, you'll all more deeply recognize the value of WX. I truly hope that's the case. We thank you for your support tonight, and we hope that you'll continue to be part of our conversation and work. Thank you very much.